Thank you for participating in the 10th Annual BlackStar Film Festival. We would like to thank our funders and individual donors, as well as our network of producing and community partners. The runtime for this program, Meshell Ndegeocello and Imani Perry in conversation, is 60 minutes, including audience Q&A, so please leave your questions in the comments and we'll do our best to engage with them. Please follow us on all social media platforms at BlackStar Fest and use the hashtags BSFF21 and BlackStar10. Don't forget to fill out our audience evaluation and vote for your favorite films. We hope you have a wonderful time during the 2021 BlackStar Film Festival. Oh my goodness, it's very challenging to hear your own voice. Good day to everyone tuning in. Welcome to the 10th Annual BlackStar Film Festival. My name is Maori Carmel Holmes, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to the dazzling minds, two of my favorite minds, in conversation today. Imani Perry is a prolific writer, scholar, and freedom dreamer. She is a professor of African American Studies at Princeton University, a scholar of law, literary, cultural, and gender studies, and an author of creative nonfiction, including the award-winning Looking for Lorraine, The Radiant and Radical Life of Lorraine Hansberry, Breathe, A Letter to My Sons, and Vexy Thing on Gender and Liberation. Imani's writing and scholarship primarily focuses on the history of Black thought, art, and imagination crafted in response to and resistance against the social, political, and legal realities of domination in the West. She seeks to understand the processes of retrenchment after moments of social progress and how freedom dreams are nevertheless sustained. Imani's forthcoming works include an examination of the history, rituals, and landscapes of the American South, and meditation on the color blue and Black life. Meshell Ndegeocello is a singer-songwriter, bassist, and composer. Ndegeocello, meaning free like a bird with a cello, evokes the qualities of liberation and expansiveness that reverberate throughout the multi-talented musician's work. Meshell began her career in the go-go music scene of DC with such bands as Rare Essence and Little Benny and the Masters. She released her Grammy-nominated debut album, Plantation Lullabies, in 1993, and has gone on to make a dozen studio albums, including my favorites, Comfort Woman, 2003, The Spirit Music Jamia Dance of the Infidel in 2005, and Ventriloquism in 2018. In 2016, Meshell debuted the musical theater work Can I Get a Witness, The Gospel of James Baldwin, as a tribute to the writer at the Harlem Stage, co-created with and directed by BlackStar alum Charlotte Brathwaite. Without further ado, I introduce you to conversation with Meshell Ndegeocello. Meshell Ndegeocello and Imani Perry.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Well, let me just start by saying I'm thrilled to be in conversation with you, and honored. And I wanted to start, since we just passed his birthday a few days ago, with someone who is an important writer for both of us, James Baldwin. And maybe I'm just starting there. Like, if you, I want to ask, like, why, how, and why is he so important to you? That in just generally.
Because unlike my parents, my limited education, and my experience as an artist and religion, he gave me some clarity about my life and about my existence here on the planet, while at the same time telling me stories, which I thoroughly enjoy. I found a lot of the canon talks about, Dickens or, with his great moral tales, but Baldwin, after I sat with a lot of his work, it became like like a guidebook, just something I could hold on to and see parts of myself reflected in a way I didn't really find in a lot of other work. And it introduced me to Lorraine Hansberry and Toni Morrison, and it just guided me along to find other things I needed in my life.
Yeah, I'm so amazed around. This is a Baldwin moment, right? And I'm amazed because he's such a truth teller, and there's just a lot that is there's a lot of artifice now. There's a lot that's not truthful in our world, and I guess that's why we're seeking something. Can you hear me? Am I?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little staticky if
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
David the tech. So sometimes if you see my mind, I'm just trying to make sure I hear you through the gaps.
Here. Okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
but okay.
I wanted to ask you about truth though. How are you feeling
Yeah.
about that word truth? I have read a lot of Richard Rorty, and I find myself starting to. I have a different engagement with the truth now because the truth into the memory that you're having, the truth in terms of history and who wrote it, your personal truth. You know, I'm that word has gotten heavy to me. So tell me how it's working for you.
It's such a good question. I'm thinking not as fact, right? I mean, we
Okay.
talk about facts, but facts are important.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about it in terms of honesty,
Okay.
about the human condition, about our vulnerability, about our fears. I mean, one of the things that I so love about Baldwin is that he is very revelatory. Like, he tells stories about his life in a way that allows them to resonate with us, right? So it's like there's a vulnerability that then we can connect to, and that I feel like is something with all the kind of surface and artifice and public display and social media that we can sort of not be surface but dig inside. It feels necessary
Yeah.
now, but also
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, so you mentioned The Devil Finds Work, which I had not read in a really long time, so I had to go
Okay.
back and read it for this conversation. And the thing that was so interesting to me about that, he talks about Hollywood there, which also feels timely. Like, what interests you about that work in particular?
Well, as time has progressed, um, I've my career has changed, and now I score for TV and film. And although the record business, a lot of it took part in Hollywood, especially in my experience in the late '80s and early '90s, there's an idea about Hollywood that I carried with me, in terms of this is where you go to make it. And after having the experience I had, and then finding The Devil Finds Work, which I read when I was about 8 years ago, and it just made me rethink a few things in my life. My father was in the military, and he often would bring home laser disc and beta tapes of movies, bootleg movies, and so film is something super important to me. It changed my life. I realized that perhaps when people hear outside your door, it's probably a bit of my life connected to like Endless Love, the movie. I remember watching that movie over and over again. I'm thinking about the movies that constructed my early self, the self that I wear like a garment that ever changes. I like that you brought that up. So that's why the book struck me, because it really made me rethink of how I constructed these selves, how looking into the TV was almost like a portal to some self or hope of experience I could have. It was a way of traveling. And so his book just helped me deconstruct a lot of the myths I filled my mind up with. Um, the part he talks about being the first writer for the Malcolm X movie. Can you imagine if they had let him continue to do that? Can't imagine, right? Just in terms of how much of that part of Hollywood is just hard to get into. Hard to find your place there, hard to not have your work changed. So yeah, that's why the book spoke to me as with my experience in Hollywood. that
When
I
you,
realize I'm a part of a machine, you know?
mm-hmm. But you, I mean, and I don't want to project on, but my feeling, you have maintained an extraordinary degree of integrity and also had longevity. And I can't, but generally, I'm interested how, right? Because you talk about, right, it can change. You're part of a machine. You can change what you're doing, and yet, right? There's a reason. Like when we were having this conversation on, really went crazy. I mean, you have a place in people's hearts because of not just your incredible gifts, but your integrity as an artist, right? We know that to get something sincere and beautiful and vulnerable from you always. How have you figured out how to in what in these industries?
Oh, I thought about that. Yes, I hope everyone knows. To see, we discussed this conversation. I had to really think about that, and I had to think what we're here today talking, and so that word in truth and integrity. It's funny you say that. I only have that now because I was a liar, and I was raised by a liar, and I'm not talking about like. I'm talking about like when you first get a record deal and they're doing your bio and they want you to make an exciting story, you embellish or my mother wasn't. I said my mother was a nurse when my mother was a home health aide, which I realize now is the true warrior job. She took care of the
Yes.
elderly. Those kind of lies. That's what I mean. Or you know you I feel like when you become a musician, an actor, or anything in this entertainment business, you are constantly challenged to maintain your integrity. And sometimes you slip because it's very hard. They dangle a carrot and you start to compromise within yourself. If I just do this, perhaps, and if I can let that go a little bit. But it wasn't until I had my life fall apart in my late 30s where I made that a really strong assertion to myself that this is my life and it's all I have. And so I think of it like the integrity of a building. My foundation must be quite solid so that everyone is safe in my house. Hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can only
sense.
lie and bullshit so long until it starts to like just yeah, and everyone
All comes crashing
around
down.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, and I love that too because it's also about love, what you describe, right? It's both, it's not just yourself, but it's about the relationships with the people you love fall apart when you don't function with that kind of integrity and honesty. Um, and one of the other things that we talked about talking about is about related to that is young people. It's about our kids and what. It's a funny question to ask for me, honestly, these days because the world has changed so much. I'm not even sure that I know, but there is I know about this world, right? That we should be able to share or try to share.
I don't. Do you feel overwhelmed by sharing often?
No, I don't. I'm good at sharing. I'm probably a little too good at it. But what I feel is I'm not sure that I know as much as the same. Not just in terms of how one follows a professional trajectory, but like there's some courage. It's just I don't. Does that make any sense?
A lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I ask myself these same questions too. Yeah. I musically I feel very safe. within the music, I can live in a space that is of my own
Okay.
creation, and I have no attachment to the response to it. But I do find, and I
Mm-hmm.
have found that doing TV and scoring, the I don't share fully of myself. I only engage in a way that I am there to aid the other creative people to bring their idea to fruition. So I'm learning to engage with creativity in a different way. But also, I feel I live in this world that, one misinterpreted dream, or, intuition and you texted or posted, you could end your livelihood. So I guess I'm having this different exchange with sharing now. I don't know what it is for anymore. And now, I find myself, I'm like, I don't know if I want to share. I want to interact more with people in a moment of now, just in the
Mm.
moments now. If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I think also what music, when you talk about being safe in the music, right, there is something to me that, I mean, I associate actually Baldwin quite a lot with music. So it's clearly so in him. That language can get confused in a way that music just get inside you, right? It can resonate and you feel it. So that whereas it'd be misinterpreted really easily. Um,
You were saying you associate Baldwin with
so
music.
can I ask? I didn't say I was gonna. Yes. Oh, can you hear me?
Barely.
We can
Yes.
hear you
No.
now.
I
Can you
can
guys hear me?
barely. Yeah, it's hard.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll try to
I like that you
start
close your
over.
eyes when you talk. I like that you close your eyes when you talk. Yes, I do
Get
too.
some.
And I know this is going to throw the host off. It's just I can't hear, so I'm going to try to change my bandwidth or whatever he's talking about by turning my camera off. Because that's funny. That's why I like music too, is because it's auditory. Your ears are the only kind of sense you can't shut off unless you put in earbuds. You can close your eyes, you could cover yourself up in your skin, not feel anything. But it's like, I really trust the sound of my voice because that is the thing that has brought me to where I am now. It's the sound of my voice. I know that how I talk to my kids or my family, it's really affected by my tone or way I move through the world. So I just want to hear you so I can answer your questions fully. So talk now, and I bet I bet I can hear everything you're saying. And ask me that question again.
What about? Okay, so I want to ask you about the bass. Why the bass? How did that become your instrument?
Ooh. My brother played the guitar. My brother is 7 years older than I am, and my father is a musician. He played in the army band, Pershing's Own. He played all the inaugurations, Carter, Ford, Reagan, and so music was. I grew up in a house full of music,
Wow.
and a friend of my brother's left the bass over. I played the clarinet in middle school. Uh, But when I played the bass, it allowed me to interact and engage with my brother in a way that, was just so amazing and mind blowing. And so that's why I play it. Like we would pretend we were Chic,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh.
Chic, and so yeah, and it's a foundational instrument. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it just holds everything together.
Yeah.
It's percussive
Mm-hmm.
yet harmonic, and I just I can lay in the cut, be in the back. It's nice. Why do you like the color blue?
Yeah. No, I met someone who says something similar. Oh. Similar? I mean, I think indigo, of course, the beauty of that color. I'm interested in how. So I'm thinking. So I think about what it meant to be on a plantation and to still be able to see the sky and the water, and that being necessary for imagination, right? Like something beyond the way that, and I like it also that it is both. It can be hot and cool depending on which color blue. Um, like pigment, the richness of blue pigment, blue black, as an expression. It is. I think accessing emotional and sensory terrain. I mean, I think for me, I love resonance. I told you, I think the the between instrument. I like these books that are hard to express in words. So, which is a little unusual for a writer, maybe, but that's the thing, I'm always trying to chase, that I'll feel at. So yeah, I think that's the source of
Yeah, I love
it.
blue. I love Rothko blue. I don't know how it got to be
Yeah,
his.
all of
Yeah, I don't know
right.
how it got to be Rothko, but I do enjoy that. And did you read The Known World by Edward P. Jones?
Yes, yes, yes.
When the first scene when he's lying on his back
Look,
in the woods and staring up at the sky. But it makes me think often, yeah, cannot imagine what my ancestors went through and how they fulfilled their imagination and lived in their imagination while doing such drudgery.
mm-hmm.
It's quite humbling a thought.
And it's so interesting you mentioned that novel, because part of what I love about it is, and now blanking on her name, but the enslaved woman who basically Freeze, conceived of as not quite right, and she draws maps of the plantation, and the maps are different than the formal map because the people relationships and stuff. And I also feel like that's part of what Black creative energy is doing. It's like retelling the story differently, right? How do we narrate? How do we retell this? How do we tell different, way? What are the different stories that we're trying to tell that are more honest to who we are than the official, which I'll need your story in your as well. Um, and how? Well, I guess the question for me is like, how did you celebrate, or because you're almost stories tell potent stories, powerful stories.
I mean, you broke up, so I'm going
Or
to
is it just
interpret.
like, oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah,
I
you
was
broke up,
asking about
so I'm going to
storytelling.
astral travel. I'm going to astral travel and try to figure that out. So you're about storytelling and it being potent. How do
Yeah.
you be honest? Well, I think, in the trajectory of an artist, making music, just talking about music, you have your whole life to write that first record. And so I think that my first record just has the honesty just out of cathartic songwriting about experiences I had because it was my escape. It's what got me out of my home. It's what got me out of my situation. And then the second record, you still are kind of going on your, you're just riding that wave and then you do it. But then eventually you have to mine for different gold. You have to find different things. But not to be non sequitur, forgive me if I digress, but yeah, I would love to see the known world as something, a visual piece, or Lost in the City. I mean, how do you're you're seeking out narratives or storytelling that like you can have some sort of interaction with that isn't made for you. It's just made to make something beautiful. And so that's what I try to do. I'm not thinking about because as I work in TV shows, it's I'm not saying this in a disparaging way, but it's calculated. They have an
Right.
audience, they have numbers they're trying to hit, and they have an idea of what works. And so I'm much more interested in, people who make things that just come from their being, and they're not so confined by commercial success, that you can truly see someone's inner vision. That's why I find such, relief within poets and artists and creative people. Or why even in James Baldwin, in telling us in a historical essay, there's still something of him in it that is
Yes.
distance from wanting to just share for the sake of sharing. There's something from him living on the paper through the word, and that's what excites me about creative people. I want all that.
Mm-hmm. Right, the living, breathing human emotion part also.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Is there anything that you haven't yet done creatively that you're yearning to do?
Oh yeah, I'm working on it right now. I'm working on an opera. I remember going to my son's
Yeah.
the Met, and the scale of the production and the moving walls and the costumes, and I was just like, wow. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's
What have you
amazing.
not
Is
done?
you
What have you done that you want to do?
I'm trying to write a novel.
Woo! June
Fiction.
Jordan told me, why would you write
Yeah. I mean,
fiction?
really?
Yeah, it always makes me laugh. Yeah, I was like, because you can, yeah, fiction. Like, why would you make it like fiction? It's so that you can lie just a little bit, right?
Yeah. Well, or tell more of the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, like it's like, what do you say? Everybody has a private life, and a life that knows about God. And I think with fiction, there's a way to access a kind of intimate truth we can be hesitant about with nonfiction. Just the hesitation about telling all of what's inside.
Yeah.
I think that's the art. Well, fiction is not so true anymore, but yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I can't wait.
Me neither. I can't wait. Well, so, are you going to talk with the opera? Are you still holding that close to the best?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm definitely one of those people. I'm surprised they even mentioned it. But yeah, that's my goal, to write something.
Okay.
That is what I would like to do. And I also want to direct a movie. Where I know that's lofty, but the visual medium speaks to me. I got to make some small visual for Afropunk last year, and like I said, I grew up living and escaping through movies. And so I would like to create a visual piece. And yeah, so I'm trying to hone those skills in my free time. But more
Do you
so,
have
I think. Say it again.
No, go ahead, please.
No, you go. Go. Tell me.
Well, I was going to ask if you have a favorite film or several favorite films that stick with
Oh,
you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Because like I said, I've been thinking a lot about like what movies kind of constructed me in my early life. Well, I remember, like I said, late 30s, life kind of fell apart. And I would watch this movie, Fantastic Planet, over and over again. So, Fantastic Planet, that's one of my favorite films. um, in terms of modern storytelling, I really love Atlantiques by Maddie Diop. Growing up, though, I also my father tried to connect with me, so in a weird way, in my teens. So one of the very first films I ever saw was Boys in the Band, which is a very strange film to look back on now. So, but in terms of aesthetic and how they lived, and my idea of New York
Yeah.
is totally constructed from that film. I also like,
Oh, wow.
I think, yeah, Officer and a Gentleman was high on my list. I watched that one over and over again and really felt for that character, because I'm autodidactic. I didn't do well in academics, and I always had this feeling of just being an outsider. So that film sticks with me quite a bit. But yeah, let's see,
Yeah.
The
No,
Shining.
with
Yeah,
oh goodness.
yeah, love that movie.
Shining. Yeah, that's a power one. And terrifying.
But I have to interrupt. I have to catch myself. Sometimes, okay, do you
Yes.
feel this pressure? Yeah, this was a note I wrote to myself if this happened. Sometimes I feel pressure to name all these films by people of color. But see, that's my
Oh.
point. When I was growing up, these were, my father was on a military base, and these were the only films I had access to. So I just want to point that out. And a lot of the black cinema that I got to experience didn't come until my like late 20s, knowing that there was African and African American cinema to access, and that I'm sad about that. I regret that in my life.
It's interesting. I feel sort of responsibility at times, right, to point attention to work done by Black folks. I also think it's to recognize that, like, the Black imagination has always been vast and included all kinds of influences, and that so for me, when I think about the folks who influenced me, there's a significant number who aren't Black folks, but it sort of limit the Blackness of my creative vision, right? I mean, I feel
Yep.
like those things, I think kind of we take, mix, interpret, we can be inspired. It's also just, it kind of goes back to, Baldwin's point about wearing it as a loose garment, right? It's there's a part of it, we carry it, but the self inside is the thing that sustains us, and things that change over time, how we identify, how we think of our place in the world. Um, and that's important,
Yes.
Can I ask about where? So I sort of asked a little bit about this, but I wanted to, this over the course of one's life, right? Especially, I think, for people of our generation, right? We sort of come of age in this era where a lot of things were, and then so much changed all over again. Like, I'm always like saying to my kids, TV wasn't on day, and it's a whole day. How do you feel? What's the word? Hopeful now?
Hopefully, yeah,
Like, so
always.
much just, you know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a way in which, we can feel like, oh, everything's going wrong, everything's declining. Well, can you talk about that? How does that sustain? How do you sustain a sense of hopefulness?
Oh, I feel the air in my lungs. I can think, I can see, I can
Okay.
feel. I'm
Yeah.
talking to you. You know what I'm saying? And I look at my children
Yep.
and I weep. I weep. I just like, woo, such beauty. And it was a young person. I have a lot of young people in my life that I love and who are kind enough to keep me engaged in living. But one of them, he's the son of a famous person, and his father was always like, this could happen, and you shouldn't do this, and this happened when I was young, and so I need you not to do this, and watch out, And his son had told him, "That's your life. I'm having my own."
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me when he said it. He's like, I'm having this that you can't imagine. And so I stay hopeful because, like I said, I often wonder if I was coming across on the boat. I definitely think I would have been one of the people that jumped off. And so that alone, knowing where I come from and who I come from, the fact that I'm here, that is, it's beyond hope. Actually, I don't like hope. I really got mad when his name shall not be mentioned said that defund the police is just a catchy slogan, and I was like, there is no greater slogan than the hope one, though. And so I must admit, I don't hope. I'm completely engaged in the present. I try to be completely here and now at all times, and especially with my children. I'm not about hope and change. I'm about loving you right here, right now, while I can, the best I can, because I've tried the other way. Like I said, I've lied, I've cheated, I've done it all. And eventually, as you age, as I'm trying to age gracefully, in the sense of it's not a letting go, but it's just being present and giving you the best of myself at all times. Sound hippy dippy, but that's the only way I could do it, because it's so heavy.
I love that. I love the concept. It's both, right? Because it's living, right? So living is different from hope in the sense that also because this word is about I'm not to do this because they may have the living in the now, right? It's kind of like full throttle living feels like I'm right. I'm going to be right, as opposed to be limited or constantly worry. And I say this, I find myself saying that often because people you all the time and your sons and that I want them to soar. So I'm not defining their lives by I want them to live fully in the day. Tomorrow really isn't promised. So, so we have to live. I think it doesn't sound hippy dippy to me. It sounds right and good.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm old too. I mean, there is something that comes with aging as you start to reconcile with to me, the greatest of adventures, when your life cycle ends. Because sadly, all of this all comes down to cinnamon, sugar, gold, and people wanting all the fruits of this planet because of their fear of death, and that is James Baldwin. We hold on to these things, this ephemera, all to just sort of distract us from our fear of death.
Right.
And
can't take it with you.
That's the most important thing he's ever taught, that his teachings have ever taught me, is that all of this that you hold on to is just because that great adventure has been sold to us or shown to us or, fictionalized in a way that we just engage it with fear. And it wasn't until I traveled and saw other cultures and
Yes.
escaped my own small world that I realized I am participating in someone else's cultural idea. And to me, the last 4 years and COVID has just been a wake-up call for me to re-engage with myself about what I believe, what I feel, what trajectory am I on? And is it one of my own making? Especially in terms of like, sensuality and sort of being seen a certain way by certain people in terms of living, which I realize have all been imagery and ideas that I came to through films and TV about this idea of certain things I'm experiencing. And I'm starting to like scrape away at that again. And really, hopefully, before I do take the great adventure, have at least 1 hour where I feel sincerely, completely me, not defined by others, you know, not he, she, they, none of that, something defined purely as me.
I think can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I told you here. I heard you, like my grandma, you get down. Yeah.
Well, listen, was she by any chance from Alabama? Because that's what.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of family there. Yeah, my family's from Kitty Hawk in Richmond, Virginia. They were tobacco. They worked on tobacco plantations, which is one of the reasons I stopped smoking. Because once you find out that's intense, and it's hard. Like I said, it's when it's helping me reconcile. My parents were very difficult, but I can't imagine being born in the 40s and living before civil rights legislation. My mother was a mixed race person. She had a fourth grade education. Like I said, my father was in the military. It's given me great empathy towards it. And so, yes, that Southern thing is always in me. I was just asked what's the feeling when you play the bass guitar, and I wanted to say, in conjunction with what I just said, when I play music, it's the only time I feel raceless and genderless. It's the only time I feel completely able to transcend this body and this realm. And it's kind of selfish. I've been told it's selfish, but like, when I'm up there, my concern is not of the audience. It's just somehow trying to transmit the best feelings I can through the sound waves. And so that music, like I said, it's the purest escape I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a gift to have that. I mean, I sort of feel like when you were saying, you're talking about, seeking an hour before transitioning into, whatever we are after we're humans in the flesh on the planet, of being completely yourself. I do think there's something about having the space creatively where you feel a connection with who you are that isn't defined by like an external gaze or context like that. It's just an enormous gift. I mean, I wish that we had a society that encouraged everybody to find that, because I do think it's very human, but I think it's not something that's encouraged. But I wanted to say something about what you were saying about the fear of death that is so characteristically American or Western European. And because one of the things that I have always found myself frustrated with talking about Lorraine, they say, oh, so tragic, she died when she was 34. What could she have done if she'd lived longer? And it was tragic, and she didn't want to die, but I'm always thinking, but such an extra beautiful life in so many ways that it feels like a way of talking death that comes, and the meaning and beauty of what was. And so I really appreciate that, right? Like if, you know, the story doesn't have to go a particular way for a life to have been well lived and beautiful, which I take that you're making, you know. But I want to go back. Oh, also to this, you said you have more compassion towards your parents.
Yeah.
You say a little bit more about, because that's a hard thing for a lot of us on this journey, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Wow. You got it. Well, yeah. I mean, I appreciate them too. I mean, they helped me. They gave me a lot of my work.
yeah.
um, yeah, and they also, you know, I mean, I do sometimes imagine in my mind that when we evolve, that we won't have eyes, and that, so our engagement with one another will be different. But it is not. It's fun. I have my father's eyes, and genetically, I think it's the reason I'm predisposed to hear music and hear in a certain way. So I thank them for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also have my mother's disposition towards sadness, melancholy, and
Mm-hmm.
grief. I'm not so grateful to that, but you know, I think in the so-called female of the species, there is that feeling is a portal, and it just also, yeah, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
that's
my
so
mother.
profound.
Yeah, the mother's hard, but it's that sadness is what allows me to probably write in a way that I can create a sonic experience that allows other people to be in their grief. And so I appreciate that from them. I think it was The Fire Next Time. That was the first time I realized he has one paragraph where he talks about so many of the young black men went into the military and they were ruined in the sense that either they drank themselves to death or saw things they could not unsee. He also talks about he so eloquently talks about the domestics who eventually, when they're 40 and their body has worn down, they die alone in apartments, you know. And you know, I come from a family of domestics and, you know, shit talking Southerners who, you know, showed me what I probably did not want to be, and so I left as soon as I could, you know. But that empathy just comes from understanding that I could never ever imagine what they went through, you know. Uh, my father was in the military and constantly pined to raise in rank. And it's only now, as an adult, that I can understand his anger and frustration within our household, and some of the behaviors he participated in. Because I now, after his death and finding things he's written or experienced, that he had a very difficult life, very difficult. And so that's the empathy you have to have. And I had a child at 19. And so when I'm with that child, I constantly try to create moments to engage with them to sort of readdress some of the things I know my child experienced due to my lack of knowledge. Or, you know, so that's the empathy I have. I question the culture. We live in such a chalk you off kind of world now. And as I watch people die, and I know we're afraid, I don't mean to be a downer, but we've just had a year and a half where we've had mass extinctions on, you know, and of people and of animals. And for you not to engage with that, to me, I think that will cause us some mental illness. And that's why I talk about
Yes.
it, because it will cause your mind to split in a certain way. And as I've watched a lot of people die, and you're in that final moment, or none of this shit really matters. And so that's what's fascinating me now, and that's where empathy comes from, because I'm just like, pretty much at the end, it's who's going to be holding your hand, rubbing your head, aiding you. And as I've dealt with that with my parents, I could hold on to the past. I could be angry. I could, or I could be with it now and participate as a human being in a different way. You know, my other
Yeah.
favorite movie, my other favorite movie is actually Soylent Green, and um, I'm really hoping that I really want, for some reason, I think Spike Lee would make a really interesting remake of that. But in Soylent Green, where the planet is dying, there's no more food, things are going on, and it's like the scribes are the special people, and one of them knows they're going to die, and so they go into this place, and it's filled with giant screens, huge, like IMAX type screens, and they wheel you in, and they give you this sedative to kill you, to aid your death, while you're watching old footage of flowers and planets and the animals and the universe. And, as you pass into the next, they're filling your mind with imagery as you go. And that's my favorite part of the film,
Wow.
because you're not, you could cycle through your own past, your thoughts, but more so, they're giving you imagery to send you off, beauty, and so I've been making music. I might put it out just to give solace,
Yeah.
for people in that way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I also want to say quickly, because we have a few more minutes, and I'm sorry I haven't been taking questions, but because I had a issue with with my screen not being able to use my laptop. I'm on my phone, so I can't actually see them. So I wanted to apologize to folks who are asking questions. But that point about this collective grief, and wanting and the necessity of being with it, I think, is so huge. I mean, grief is familiar that we live with, and I find it terrifying, the impulse to rush past it, or to pretend it's not happening, or keep it hidden, as opposed to reckoning with what this means for us. And I think both, mass death and also disability. I think, COVID is also is disabling. So people, talking about not being able to think clearly, or being ill in the long term, and really sitting with that, I think is so important, and not just for the sake of like getting past it, to, oh, this will make us keep on, get vaccinated, get our masks, which of course is all important, but also this is the human condition right now, right? This is the world that has been made and is being made in its own, unless we're shaken up enough to do something else.
Well, that's why you have to finish your book. I mean, I find myself enjoying reading, and I must admit, I'll probably never go to another theater. I love sitting in my own environment and taking in images by choice, because my son, during the COVID, my youngest, he's 11. We thought he had it, and he was really struggling. It was so intense, and I think someone suggested, well, you got to leave him alone or you'll get it, and blah. And I was like, no, I will sit and hold this child, because if it was something dire, I will sit and hold this child till the end.
Mm-hmm.
despite anything I will get. But more so after that, him and I were just like, it's balls to the walls. We had tried. He was like, if I want to be just living on 10 and having the best experiences. Like that's what it made an 11-year-old think. Like I just every day is another day to try,
Oh,
have a good time and being engaged.
yes.
And so I really respect that about him. And I'm hoping that whoever is listening to this, it sends your creativity soaring. Those moments alone are doubt. I hope it's pen to paper,
Yes.
or you get in the studio and you work, because when I do teach, I get a lot of questions, and people get upset with me because I tell them the only way to get good at anything is to sit and be by yourself for long periods of time, and just travel through your mind, travel through your imagination. It is a lonely thing, but I love it. It turns my it's a blessing to me. But it's that time alone and those hours of doubt that you should definitely mine for the gold, or mine for the air that you need, because you never know how it could affect another person. Don't be afraid to fail either. I've last year I tried to do some shows and they failed horribly, and it's been so enlightening. You learn from the mistakes. It's okay. Just engage with yourself as much as you can. You know.
I think that's so important, and I wish more people talked about failure as a necessary part of the process. There's no way around it, and also, I mean, being with yourself is, in some ways, I mean, it requires a degree of self-love that can also be hard to come by, right? I mean, to sit with yourself means to really sit with yourself.
Oh yeah.
Which can be challenging. Also, I think you have a share, Star folks.
Say that one more time.
Oh, I was saying, you have any final thoughts you'd want to share? I guess we're
Oh,
almost out of time. Yeah.
okay.
Thank
Final
you so
thoughts.
much.
Let me look at these
Yeah.
questions. Oh, I appreciate you so much. And I hope
No,
we get to do this again in person, or maybe I cook for
me
you or
too.
something.
Yes.
Let's see. Rob asked me a couple questions. Let's see. And I assume these are from people. Do I
Oh,
identify
good.
with third wave feminism? Nope, I do. I do not. I kind of stay away from those things. That would be my other thing. Um,
Mm.
I am not a politician. I am not a philosopher. I am, like I said, a soul on the planet. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm not sure if movements and things like that really work for me. Um,
Mm.
what genre of music moves my soul? Oh, lately, just right now, I've been really studying Curtis Mayfield. Um, that lately has really been speaking to me. Um, I'm into deep listening. Um, More so, the sound of people's voices and sort of the natural surroundings really move me more than music. Um, yeah, I find just listening to quiet and the ocean to be my real motivation, because I'm inundated with music all the time, and so sometimes it's the taking a break that I can feel the most at ease with myself. Um, if there are any other audience questions, I'm sorry I didn't do that. Yeah, at least give me two if we have time. I try to. Yeah, the audience is important. Sorry about that. Any more coming on the chat? Nope. All right, then my last thing to say is, um, put your phone down. Try to leave
Mm.
it at home for a whole day and see what you take in. It's
Mm.
amazing. And be kind to the people that make your food. I know that sounds crazy, but we've been living a life and everything's so easy and so quick. And COVID has really made me, if anything, I want to be the saint to all the service workers. Just be kind to the people that make your food. Mhm. All right. I appreciate everyone.
Amen to
God
that.
bless. Yeah. Oh my God. I hope I get to meet you in person and treat
Yes,
each
we'll
other
make
kindly.
that happen.